Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. This is the 2021 annual meeting of the Martinazzi Woods CIO, Community Involvement Organization. I am going to be running the meeting. I am Sally Olson. I'm the current president of Martinazzi Woods CIO. Megan George is with the city of Tualatin, and she is going to be facilitating. So she will be monitoring the chat room. She will be putting up presentations. She has control of the actual Zoom call. And I am asking Megan at this time if she could mute everybody except the speaker so that we don't have a lot of background noise, because I think that can be very disconcerting. We have 22 people on the call so far, and I think that more may be trickling in. So our CIO is a conduit between the residents of Martinazzi Woods and the city government, and the different agencies that we work with, like Tualatin Valley Fire, our police department, and we have representatives of several of those organizations here this evening to speak to us. So Megan will put up the agenda shortly. But the order of our speakers is as it was on that postcard that we sent out about 2 weeks ago. And the postcard indicated that the first speaker would be Stefan Myers from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, followed by Tualatin Chief of Police, Bill Steele. After him is the superintendent of the Tigard-Tualatin School District, Dr. Sue Reiki-Smith. Then to specifically address traffic in Tualatin is our principal transportation engineer, Mike McCarthy, and police chief Bill Steele, both of them. And our city councilor, we have a city councilor who lives in Martinazzi Woods, that is Valerie Pratt. She will also be speaking. Then we have annual elections, and I want to just give you a preview of this. The current officers of Martinazzi Woods CIO are myself, Sally Olson is president, Del Moore is the vice president, Janet Gilkey is our treasurer, Ardith Graham is our secretary, and Jeremiah Baldwin is our land use officer. This year being an odd number year, our bylaws require that the president, treasurer, and land use officer are up for election. So if you have any interest in any of those three positions, you can chew on that during the presentation. We have the elections near the end. Think about if that's a way that you want to participate. Megan has put the job descriptions up on the on Zoom right now so that you can look at them, or if you want to look at them, you can go to tualatincio.org and then / Martinazzi Woods CIO, and they will be in there, and they're in the bylaws. So we have these elections, and the last thing we have is the ratification of our bylaws, because even though CIOs have been around for 10 years, we've discovered that the city does not have a signed copy of our bylaws. And we aren't the only ones. There are 6 residential CIOs, and we aren't the only ones. There are a couple that have signed ones and some that don't. So our goal tonight is to vote on the bylaws and some small changes to them, and to then get them to be signed by me and Del Moore so that we have a signed copy of bylaws with the city. I need to tell you that I also have a bad cold, so my voice comes and goes a little bit, but I'm hoping that it will be with us a lot more than it's not. One other thing I wanted to bring up. So as we have the speakers have short time frames, and I'm going to try and keep the time moving along. And I realize that when we get on topics like schools and traffic, that things can really get out of hand. If you have questions for a specific speaker, if you could type them into the chat room, and Megan will monitor them. And then when the speakers are done with their presentation, Megan will be giving them the questions from the chat room. And if there aren't any, it's possible that we could take some from the open group, but at this point, I'm not really sure. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue Public Affairs Officer Stephen Myers for the next 5 minutes.
Thank you, Sally. Pleasure to be with you, even if it's virtual. We miss meeting with you guys in person. So honored to be here with you. I just want to be really quick. First of all, is just understanding. Responding to emergency calls during the pandemic is challenging. We want to recognize that it may be somewhat jarring as you see some of our firefighters in full, what you might call a Tyvek suit. That was an early move that we did during the pandemic to preserve PPE so that it could be reusable. So we do recognize that we may look a little bit different, but we're still here to serve you, whether it be a fire or emergency medical need. A couple things for the fire district. We recently deployed some new cardiac monitors. These are important. They have a 12-lead system that's able to image a heart. So it's a way for us to bring a bit of a emergency room to your living room when you're having a cardiac arrest or to monitor other medical conditions. So that's a great tool we now have at our disposal and have updated. As a lot of businesses are going through organization is in the hiring process. Right now, we have a Paramedic Academy that we have gone out for recruitment for and will begin in January. Paramedic Academies are fantastic because they allow us to get a vast, diverse skill set of individuals into the fire service that can then serve your community and provide emergency medical care. But the reality is we also get a diverse candidate pool from that so that our fire department can better reflect the community that we serve. We also have then a Firefighter Academy that's going to be starting in February. So if you drive by Tonkin Road or in the area there, you're probably going to see a lot of activity coming through January and February. We are very appreciative that recently the bond that was put before you for consideration was passed at 72%. That's going to pay for a lot of different things within the fire district, but specific to Tualatin, Station 34 is included in that for upgrades, for seismic improvement, and also for quarters to be updated to make sure that they're accommodating to both male and female firefighters. And then we also are going to be updating some rigs. So that's going to help us both from the fire department standpoint and our medic units, but also you have a hazardous materials team that's located in Tualatin. So that could definitely be improved. And then our training center. So again, on Tonkin Road, you're going to see us starting some early phase work from that bond to start improving that property. My father actually worked for Tualatin Valley back in the day, and that training center was built and first started back when he was beginning his career. So it is aging out of safety protocols and needs, and so we're going to be looking to bring that up to date for our current firefighters so they can train and be ready to respond to your community. With that, I hope I was within the 5 minute parameter, and I'd be happy if you have any quick questions.
You did just great. We do have another minute or two. Megan, are there any questions for Stefan in the? So I have a question. I have a question about the building that is right next to the elementary school, the new elementary school on Avery, I believe. What is that building, and what part of TVF&R goes on there?
Great question. Yeah, so that is our logistics center. Okay, so we used to have our fleet and our supply, right, getting out turnouts and air packs and everything to our firefighters based in Aloha and partially in Tigard. And then our fleet that works on the fire engines and medics and units was located in Aloha as well. So what we did is we found that property, we updated and remodeled it, and we were able to put all of our stuff in one location. So now we service our fire rigs out of there. We have our facilities people that work on the fire stations when they need improvements. And we also have our supply distribution. So whether it's medical supplies or safety supplies for our firefighters, it's all based out of there now. So yeah, we're really excited to have a little bit more of a presence in Tualatin. And for us, it made a big difference in centrally locating, whereas Aloha wasn't exactly in the center of our district. We're now a little more centrally located, so we don't have to drive as much and we can be a little more efficient.
Excellent. Thank you.
We have one comment in the chat, I think from Diana, who wanted to share.
Okay. Diana? Are you on mute?
I'm unmuting. Well, I just wanted to thank the Tualatin Valley Fire for the quick response and great work that they did with the fire that we had in here at the end of our cul-de-sac about a week ago. And so, gosh, there were like 3 or 4 fire trucks just right away. And I guess if one of these fires gets loose in a neighborhood, you know, it can be kind of scary. So it looked like there were fire trucks all the way from Lake Oswego. So the response was great to know that so many stations responded and were ready to help if need be.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, Stefan, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Police Chief Bill Steele now. Bill, are you ready to talk to us?
I am ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody again, and hopefully next time we'll be able to meet in person. Like Stefan mentioned, we've been dealing with a pandemic. It's had some impacts on how we've been providing service for the last, it's amazing to say, 1.5 years plus now. You know, we pride ourselves on responding to just as many calls as we can in person. Early on in the pandemic, we did shift away from that a little bit and made a lot more phone calls than just showing up and knocking on people's doors. It was really a focus on our part to make sure we had a healthy workforce available to handle the workload that we have, because that necessarily didn't stop during the pandemic at all. So we've been pretty successful with that. We're still out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, handling whatever comes our way and keeping our community as safe as possible. Some things that we've had going on the last year or so that we're pretty proud of. We have started what is called a mental health response team. What that is, it's a partnership that we started with Tigard and Sherwood. We hired a mental health clinician that is assigned out of our police department, and they ride around in a patrol car with our police officers, responding to a variety of different situations, handling people that are in crisis or just struggling with mental illness. I will say I've been a police officer in this area for about 25 plus years now, and the number of calls that we receive for people that are experiencing some type of mental illness related incident has grown exponentially. So we want to really make sure we have as many tools as possible to get people the right help that they might need. So this is a program that's been up and running for about 2 months now in our area. So that clinician will pair up, like I said, in a police car with a police officer and respond out to whatever they might need to deal with. Right now they work 40 hours a week. So our busiest time of the week for that person to be available is Tuesday through Friday, swing shift type hours. So about 1 p.m. until about 11 o'clock at night. They're out there in our communities, not only in Tualatin, but in Tigard and Sherwood as well. Handling whatever comes their way. Our police department, we want to be an open book. As much as we can share what we're doing on a regular basis, we want to get information out. And so one additional tool that might be able to help with that is body cameras. That will be something that our officers will soon be carrying. We've secured funding. The body cameras have been ordered. But if you've experienced some of the same challenges that we've had, there's supply chain issues. And a lot of things that we order now are taking much, much longer to receive. So they've been ordered. We're just not quite sure when we're actually going to see those. We were hoping to have them within, honestly, a couple of weeks, but it might be a few months before we actually receive those. But once we get those, they'll be equipped on all of our uniformed officers, to include myself when I'm in uniform out in the community. And so we've got a good policy in place. There's good statutory parameters on when we would record situations, when we wouldn't, and when that type of information would be releasable if somebody were asking for information like that. So we're excited to have that in the near future, and we just got to wait on that supply chain to get us the equipment that we need. You live in a pretty safe community. We're very proud of that. I think our officers do an outstanding job taking care of the needs of the community members, but we're not perfect, and we have some issues in our community. Some things that we have that we deal with specifically in the neighborhoods, cars being entered by people. The vast majority of our cars that are entered are through unlocked vehicles. Not all the time. Every now and then we'll have cars broken into or windows smashed, but the vast majority of them are unlocked cars where people are getting in and still taking items of value out. You know, people leave backpacks and laptops, and so whatever I can do to get people to not leave valuable items like that in their vehicle would be very beneficial. At the same time, we've had a number of cars stolen in our community within the last few months. And it amazes me that people are actually leaving their keys and their key fobs in their cars. So when people enter those unlocked cars and they're finding the keys, they're driving away. And we're catching a few of them. It probably wouldn't surprise you that some of them are teenagers out, roaming around in the neighborhoods at night and taking our cars that we've left the keys and stuff in. So don't leave your keys in your unlocked cars. We want to prevent car thefts, and there's simple little things that we can do to help have an impact on that. We've got school resource officers in school again. There was a discussion that started about a year ago if that program was going to continue or not. Dr. Sue is here, and there was a meeting just earlier tonight. We've had some great discussions with the community members about what the school resource officer program should look like. I think there's many benefits to it, but us as a department, we have to always evolve and improve on the way we do business. So this has been a good opportunity for us to hear different types of input about school resource officers and make sure we're meeting the needs of the community in terms of a program like that. So I've got some other stuff I'll talk about in just a few minutes with Mike about traffic. So I will end it at that unless there were specific questions right now.
Actually, you are at the end of your time and we don't have time for questions. If you do have questions for Police Chief Steele, please put them in the chat room. If we have time at the end, we will come back to it. If we don't, and if you put your email address in there, we will make sure that we get back to you by April, but we're going to be moving on now to Dr. Sue Ricky-Smith with the Tigard-Tualatin.
Thank you so much, Sally. And Megan, I don't know if you have the slide deck or one of my folks do, but I'll give you a minute.
I don't have it loaded, but I can pull it up if that's easy.
Yeah, thank you. Or Patty, are you able to do that? Okay. Thank you so much. Well, while we're quickly waiting for that slide deck, then we'll step through it. I want to give kudos to Chief Steele. Really, the partnership has been amazing, and we really to be able to sit as a community, both for Tigard and Tualatin SROs, and to help our community understand, why SROs are so important to our schools and the relationships that our officers build with students and families. It is just really, while it has been challenging at times, it has also been incredibly rewarding. And I just nothing but thank you to the chief and to the city of Tualatin for helping us with that process and continuing to be in partnership with us. It's a valuable program, and we are certainly grateful for the partnership. So our mission in Tigard-Tualatin School District is that we educate every child. Next slide, please. Patty's going to get tired of me saying this in the next year or two. She's heard me say that 1,000 times. We currently have 16 schools, and we added a 17th this year, which is the Tigard-Tualatin Virtual Academy, in response to parents who are not ready yet to have their children come into brick and mortar. Our Reckon Elementary School has broken ground and is making good progress, and we'll provide you with some information about that school. It is out off of between Beef Bend Road and Bull Mountain Road, and it will service the River Terrace community that is being built out there, that is bounded to the west by Roy Rogers, and to the north and south by Bull Mountain Road and Beef Bend Road. Next slide, please. This is our school board. We have 3 new members this year. Dr. Marvin Lynn, who is the vice chair, Tristan Irvin, and directors David Jaimes. Our board chair is Ben Bowman. This is his 3rd year on the board, and Director Jill Zerschmied, who is from the Tualatin area. And we are pleased to have all of them, and they are learning the ropes this year, as this is basically a new board to Tigard-Tualatin. Next slide, please. The strategic plan is coming to an end this year, and our pillars happen to be anchored in student achievement, that we are dedicated to all children excelling and doing well and being prepared for life and citizenship. Around equity, that all children feel welcomed and included and are served well, that we hire talented staff, and that the climate and cultures of our schools are warm and welcoming in a place where children feel safe. Please be looking if you are interested. There will be a community process this year the board is engaging in relative to starting the development of the next 5-year strategic plan. The goal here is to maintain the 4 pillars that I've just outlined for you, but to go deeper with the work. Next slide, please. Our funding primarily comes from the state school fund, and this shows you basically the 2 bars. The blue bar is what we receive from the state. The orange bar is our expenditures. The biggest driver there for us is typically salary and benefits, primarily medical dental benefits, and then the PERS retirement system. Next slide, please. We also received funding from the Student Success Act. This was part of a CAT tax that has been applied to businesses, for which we are grateful to our business community for their support. What it has provided for us is an additional $10 million that we have been able to apply to mental health issues for our students, providing additional services for them, providing additional services relative to expansion of academic programming for our students, as well as providing additional teachers in the classrooms to keep our class sizes lower. Next slide, please. And as many of you know, we also received federal funding relative to the impacts of COVID, both known as ESSER 2, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and ESSER 3. Here is a timeline that shows you how those dollars are being applied. Last summer, we provided expanded childcare for families during the summer, low cost. We also offered high school and K-8 summer school programs, and we used ESSER 2 funds to match state funding. We served over 1,200 students K-8 this summer, and an additional 100 students at the high school level, where close to 100 high school credits were recovered. During the 21-22 school days, we've applied that to support and expand our opportunity to serve families through food service. We have hired additional temporary staff to help with our sub pool. We've also built out new assessment systems so we know where students are relative to math and language arts. We have stood up the Tigard-Tualatin Virtual Academy with these dollars to provide over 600 students online instruction for those who are not comfortable coming back into school, and then also provided additional professional development. And you can read the rest of the timeline. Our goal is to, if we can, to try to extend the school calendar by a year, beginning next year, and we are in conversation relative to that, because we know that the more time students have in front of our very talented teachers, the better the outcomes. Next slide, please. We have reopened our schools, and we have brought students back into full-time instruction. As you go to our website, you will see our public health safety plan, known as the Ready Schools Safe Learners Resiliency Plan. You will also see that we have a COVID dashboard, which tells you how many students have been tested positive, or staff, whether their exposure was in school or whether it was out of school, and how many individuals are in quarantine. We have been able so far to maintain all of our schools, to keep them open. We have on occasion had to do what we call flipping a classroom, which is putting the entire classroom online for a week during the quarantine period and then bringing them back in. But we have not at any time to this point had to completely shift the entire school system into online instruction. We've been able to offer full academic and athletic activities, and there will be a full holiday concert season this year, which we were not able to do last year. We are just recently begun to welcome in our volunteers who are vaccinated, and so we are slowly but surely making gains relative to returning to a semblance of normalcy relative to operation. Next slide, please. Our virtual academy, as I said, are open 5 days a week. They run on a regular bell schedule, and they are serving currently over 600 students K-12. Next slide, please. College and career readiness, we continue in a very deep and appreciative relationship with the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Tigard Chamber of Commerce. Work Ready is an opportunity for our high school students to have internships and job shadows and apprenticeships with local businesses. And as one example, at Tualatin High School, the engineering robotics classroom, their capstone senior year project is to actually be on site at Lamb Research. And we have Lamb Research individuals that come into the classroom and teach our students. And the goal here is to provide our students at 9th grade, you see the wheel in the corner, exposure to a variety of different college and career pathways that they can then add additional elective coursework so that they can experience on-the-job opportunities and potentially go into that field after they graduate post-secondarily. Our goal is that every student who graduates also has a post-secondary plan, either to go to college, to a technical school, or to receive a 2-year degree from the local community colleges. Next slide, please. Our student and family assistance, we have now a system of supports. Packed with Pride was a local volunteer effort relative to feeding families that has now been taken under the wing of the district. And so families continue to receive food boxes. We give out over 850 food boxes per week to families in need. And that is through the support with working with our foundation. In addition, there is the Caring Closet that provides clothing and vouchers in terms of housing. We have the Neighborhood Health Center and Virginia Garcia, who provide medical care at our 2 high schools. Neighborhood Health Center is at Tualatin High School, and Virginia Garcia provides health services at Tigard High School. And then we are also offering COVID-19 vaccination clinics for those families who are ready to have their children vaccinated. We are not mandating it, nor is any other district in the state mandating that at this time. But we have, based on a survey, over 75% of our parent base who has asked for access to vaccination. And so we stood up a clinic for today. Those slots went in 2 hours. And so we will be looking to provide additional opportunities for that with our partner, which is Providence Medical Group. Next slide, please. From the community support, one of the things that this is my 4th year as your superintendent, and I continue to experience the deep partnerships that we have with Tualatin and with the Tigard communities, and the way in which the community shows up when we ask them to come to the table and help us solve problems. The SRO committee is one of those. Our harassment and hate speech committee is another one. Certainly the support through the bond has been huge, and I have some slides here that we'll quickly step through. Next slide, please, to show you how those dollars have been leveraged. Bond project, Tualatin High School received extensive renovation, which was completed in 2019. Tigard High School had a 2-phase opening. First, it was 2019, and then the second phase was completed in 2020. Here you see a reimagining of the north end edge of the Tualatin High School, and just some of the spaces that were paid for by the bond, and the parking lots have been totally redone, which has been huge, as well as additional classroom spaces and expansion of our CTE sites at Tualatin. Next slide, please. Here you also see other projects. Creekside Community School now is a full net zero school using solar panels and other methodologies to go to net zero relative to a carbon footprint in operation. Beautiful space there on Durham Road. Templeton Elementary School was completely rebuilt, and we have repurposed the old Templeton Elementary School into the Calapoola Early Learning Center, where we host 4 preschool classrooms. Bentuality Middle School was also completely rebuilt, and it is open on that campus. And again, it is a beautiful space. It is currently where we are holding our board meetings, and then we will transition to the Calapoola Center beginning on November 22nd as the new board meeting space, because it is a larger space to welcome community and with more parking. Next slide, please.
Dr. Sue, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off now.
That's quite all right. And I'll leave the slide deck to the rest of you, and more than happy to answer any questions via email that I can. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you very much. And I saw that there was at least 1 or 2 questions in chat. Be sure, 3, if you leave a question in the chat room, be sure to leave your email address so that we can get a response back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Now from schools, we're moving on to traffic. And we have our principal transportation engineer, Mike McCarthy, who is going to be speaking to us now. Mike, are you with us? Ready? Unmute. We have a presentation.
I'm here now, and I just brought up the presentation. I had the presentation all ready to go and forgot to unmute myself first. So, I heard you were interested in talking about traffic and transportation, and we're going to walk through fairly quickly a few of the Tualatin City projects, and then a few others from some of our agency partners like the county and the state, and then some planning efforts that are going on. And then I believe Chief Steele has some things to say about traffic and as it relates to police. So here's some of the projects we'll be talking about with our Tualatin Moving Forward program. As you can see, we have quite a bit going on. We're talking about Martinazzi Saggart, Garden Corner Curves, and then some projects in the works, Tualatin Sherwood Road, getting towards I-5, and then a big project coming on Boone's Ferry, and some smaller neighborhood traffic safety projects. So on Martinazzi Saggart, as you can probably tell, these pictures are old already, and the signal poles, the vertical parts are now sticking straight up, and the horizontals are coming. The sidewalk is scheduled to be poured tomorrow, weather permitting. The rain's been kind of making it a little difficult to get some work done lately, but we're planning to pour the sidewalks tomorrow, which will include all of the artistic stamps in the new sidewalk going in. The signal poles are up. Unfortunately, we also just heard that our signal heads and a couple key pieces for the controller are in a shipping container and a freighter off the Port of Long Beach right now. So unfortunately, we're probably going to have some delays there before we can get the signal turned on. And Garden Corner Curves, we've been really excited. That's been open for a few weeks now, and we have the project celebration coming Saturday morning. And then another project that we're working on, getting to the I-5 interchange. And this photo shows a bit of what goes on. As you probably all know, Tualatin Sherwood Road gets backed up pretty badly at times. And a lot of the reason for that is most people trying to get to I-5 end up in the right lane. And because you take the right lane both to get to the I-5 southbound ramp and to the I-5 northbound loop ramp. And so traffic gets stuck there, and then people going, say, straight across to Nyberg Road East can't get around. And so people end up more in line, and then the line gets backed up and people can't get to where they need to go. So we're working with the state on a project that would realign some of the lanes approaching the I-5 southbound interchange. So the right lane goes to I-5 south, the middle lane will end up going I-5 north, and then the left lane could also go to I-5 north or straight across to Nyberg. And then some signage and pavement markings, other things way back almost to Boone's Ferry to try to help people get into the right lanes, correct lanes, not necessarily the right lane. And that one's in the works. And we're just starting design work on 5 smaller neighborhood projects at these star locations. This first one on Avery, right near Tualatin Sherwood Road, would be a sidewalk along that southwest side of Avery. Then another set of intersection flashing lights on Martinazzi and Mohawk. That particular crosswalk is kind of scary, and we've actually had some people hit there. Some work up near Martinazzi getting to Fred Meyer, and particularly around the bus stop near the Fred Meyer driveway. And then some work to try to help people walk or bike across the Sagard Street Bridge that goes across I-5. And we have extra wide travel lanes there, and narrowing them down to a normal travel lane width, I think give a little more space for biking and walking, and try to figure out what we can really put there that would still allow our street sweepers to work. And then some work in the Stone Ridge neighborhood of 67th and 68th Avenue. And then a project in the early design stages along the whole length of Boone's Ferry Road, south of Tualatin Sherwood Road. So really picking up at Warm Springs and then to the southern city limits, and trying to fill in gaps in sidewalk, bike lane. So like places where we connect pieces of sidewalk to make it so you can have a sidewalk all the way down. And in most places where there's pathways, we'd really be using the pathways as the facility there. And then some minor pavement widening for bike lanes, and some possible improvements at Avery intersection and just north of Marquee. Those are in the early design stages for possible construction, some of it in 22, more of it in 23. And then we also have some pretty big projects going on with some of our agency partners. Washington County is in the final design stages on a big project to widen Tualatin Sherwood Road. So we'd have 2 lanes each direction from Teton all the way west through Sherwood. They're constructing part of it down near Highway 99 now. They'll start construction soon in the Tualatin portion, soon probably being next spring. And then they're working on the Basalt Creek Parkway extension. And then they have another program in the works that we can submit projects for, what they call the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, which is funding projects like the Tualatin Sherwood Road widening, and they're now picking the next round. And then the state has some pretty big ones happening, adding some lanes or auxiliary lanes along Highway 217 from I-5 north up towards Washington Square, and then southbound on 217 from Beaverton underneath the Allen and Denny overpasses down towards Washington Square again. And then ODOT is in the design stages on a project to widen I-205. The section is currently 2 lanes each way from Stafford Road over to Oregon City. And that leads to one of the next planning items is they're talking about tolls on that section of 205. And the tolls would partly go to fund that widening project, but they're also looking at tolls along all of the I-5 and I-205 corridors. Then Metro's updating the regional transportation plan. And Chief Steele, or I'll stop sharing and then Chief Steele can share some of what he wanted to share.
Chief, you have about 2 minutes, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Hey, real quick. So we take a lot of different approaches to traffic complaints that come to our police officers. We work so much with Mike and his crew. We meet on a regular basis to talk about the issues and complaints we receive. In fact, we got a meeting scheduled tomorrow. For the police department, we only have a certain number of police officers, so we have to use them wisely. We have 2 dedicated motorcycle officers who work during the day shift hours to solely focus on traffic issues. In January of this year, we kind of moved some officers around to create a traffic officer position on swing shift type hours. That's really our busiest time of the day for all types of calls. So we really wanted to make sure we still had to focus on traffic during swing shift type hours. So we've got that going for us. We have to be smart about dealing with the complaints we receive. We get a lot of complaints about speed in neighborhoods, so we can't put an officer out there all the time, but we have the ability to use technology to our advantage. We have a little black box that we can put out on street lights and stuff to capture the speeds of the vehicles that are traveling, so that we can analyze that data to figure out when the best time to put somebody out there to watch that traffic flow if it's needed. A lot of times it's not needed. We'll get complaints about speeding vehicles, and we'll capture literally tens of thousands of vehicles over a 1-week period on a roadway, and their average speed might be 1 or 2 miles an hour above the posted speed limit. So it's not a significant need for traffic enforcement at that time, but we use that data. We keep track of the complaints that we receive, and we keep track of how much time we spend on those types of issues. If we get a complaint about a stop sign that has cars that roll through it and don't come to a complete stop, it's tough for us, depending on the circumstances, to put somebody out there to watch that intersection. If a car only goes through there every 2 or 3 hours, we can't, leave a car out there for 3 hours watching that intersection. So we have to, again, be very smart about when we put our resources out there, because they're in such high demand. So we've got that going. We've got some grant funding opportunities that have come our way from the state to do enhanced pedestrian enforcement details, where we'll put an officer out at the pedestrian crosswalks, walking across the street and seeing if cars stop for them. And if they don't, those cars get pulled over. So we do little things like that. We try to publicize those events just to make sure our community knows that those things are going on. And then again, we've got a couple intersections with red light cameras. Those are designed to reduce or eliminate the high speed impact crashes. I can tell you, in 5.5 years since I've been the chief, we haven't had a fatal crash in the city of Tualatin. So that's something we should be proud of. That's a good thing for us. So that's probably my 2 minutes plus. So I'll quit talking right now.
It is, I'm afraid, and we need to move on to Councillor Pratt. If you have questions for either Mike or for Chief Steele about traffic, again, if you would put them in chat. And Megan has reminded me that you can either leave your email for follow-up in the chat room, or you can text it to, and this number is in chat, 971-201-1571, if you don't want to put your email up there for everybody to see. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chief Steele. And we'll move.
Just one thing, if you ever have questions about anything, just call me. I love talking to people. I'm always in my office, and I love the opportunity to talk to our community members.
And he comes out to National Night Out too. So if you have a National Night Out party, let the police department know and they will show up. Okay, Valerie, moving on to you.
If I could do this. So I'm going to give you an update. We got traffic covered by Mike and safety by Chief Steele. So I'm going to go through as much as I can that council's done in the next 5 minutes. First, if you need to like to contact us, it's council@tualatin.gov. That gets the mayor and all of us. And here's mine too, but we love to hear from you. And with COVID, we really love to hear from you because it's hard to get out and talk, except a couple of neighbors I see on here. Basalt Creek, that's the area from Norwood up to Green Hill, approximately south of us. And that the city agreed we're going to let that be annexed into the city. So the first piece of that has been annexed in, and it's basically a big rectangle surrounding Horizon Christian School. The developers are planning to put housing in there. We passed an urban renewal district for that area. And what that means is that we will get the tax increment. So like if the property taxes increase next, or like 3% next year, we'd get that 3% increase. So TVF&R and the county have agreed to let us have that money. It gets used in that area for mostly infrastructure, and there's some money in there to put trails and things in, but it gets used directly in that area. And next, you probably saw in your bills that we added a $5 parks utility fee. This is because the Parks Department did an inventory of our assets, or, playgrounds, and you could see a couple things here in the, like that bridge and Browns Ferry Park, and 42% of them on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being great and 5 being you can't use this. We had 42% of our park assets were in that 4 and 5 categories. So we have a lot of deferred maintenance in our parks. We put in the way, government works, there's capital funding for projects, but then maintaining them is a whole different funding source. So we have a lot of deferred maintenance. So we decided to put this fee, and we looked at a range from $2 to $10. And this was kind of the compromise middle, that we didn't want people to be really hurt in this tough time, but it's just kind of like letting your house or your car fall apart. You have to do something to try to maintain it. So that's where we ended up with this parks fee. And then the Parks Department has prioritized, and it comes from the master plan, a lot of projects. And in our area, that would include the Chieftain Dakota Greenway that needs repaving, and then those steps up into the Little Woodrose Nature Park. I'm very excited. We're working on climate action plan, and we interviewed the consultants last week. It was city staff, and I listened in, and a little insider information. We talked today, and we've chosen the firm we're going to work with. So we're moving forward on that. A lot of it will be done starting after the first of the year into the next year. And we've decided to have a group of ad hoc or short-term committee work together to help, hopefully to end up with an advisory committee that will help us with some of our goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to help define what that means, because it's not just race, but it's age, it's all kinds of things. So we just thought we need a group to help go further with that. How much time do I have left, Sally? I don't know.
About 1 minute.
Oh, okay. I can do this.
Good.
Library makerspace. This is very exciting. Something that I got was kind of nice to have COVID, to have the library closed, to put this in. But you can use, this is so cool. It's kind of STEM focused, but it's, I'm going to go to the next slide because it's so cool. It shows some examples. There's sewing machines, there's little robot things, there's leather making tools, there's Legos. So it's really cool. And you could go onto the city website under library, and you could really read a lot more about it. It's super fun and educational, and for people of every age. And then last of all, even though our neighborhood's kind of excluded, we're going to have the holiday lights parades again this year. So anybody wants to join, you can sign up to be in the parade and put your things on your car and drive through the neighborhood and bring a little holiday cheer. And we're going to participate this year. So I'm kind of excited. And that's all I have, unless someone has a quick question.
Valerie, we did have one quick question earlier, and you mentioned the parks fee, the $5 parks fee, and you mentioned that it would be used for parks. Is it specifically allocated to parks, or will it be used for other city needs also?
No, it's specifically for parks and has to be used for parks and maintenance.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you.
We're gonna move on now to our annual elections. So this is what I told you in the beginning. We have 3 officers of the CIO that are up for re-election. We're going to start with the land use officer. And the land use officer currently is Jeremiah Baldwin. And I'm going to read the land use officer job description. Shall keep current on land use issues pertinent to the CIO, shall have the authority to speak on behalf of the executive board and CIO pertaining to land use issues, shall be a member of the land use committee, and shall make available to membership pertinent land use information and perform other duties as designated by the board. So our land use officer, we went through it so quickly when Mike McCarthy was talking. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on with land use, especially to the south of us, that is going to affect Martinazzi Woods a lot. And so I think that the land use officer is actually a fairly important position. There are a lot of hearings going on now. So this is the time, with Megan's help, because I can only see about 10 people, that I'm asking if anyone would be willing to volunteer to be our land use officer for the next 2 years. Jeremiah has said that he would like to retire, and we would like to let him retire if we can find someone else. So is there anyone who is willing to take up the land use job and go forward with it? You're welcome to unmute if you are interested.
Can you put up the job description of it again, please?
Thanks, Megan. Can you do that? So it's the bottom one. Basically, it has to do with a lot of the hearings that are going on. What affects us right now is the Basalt Creek development. And there are different hearings on what type of housing is going in. There's also Parks is working on it. There's a lot going on. So do I have anyone who is interested?
Sally, I'd be interested in stepping in that role.
Jameson, thank you so much. I am, if you can get your contact information into that phone number, then I would be very happy to work with you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank
Already
you for
done.
stepping up.
Thank you.
The next job is secretary. And the secretary is currently, oh my gosh, Ardith. And she would also like to retire if we can find another secretary. So the secretary needs to keep attendance records and minutes of each meeting, including a summary of discussion of views expressed, majority views. And if you take minutes, you know that minutes doesn't mean writing down everything. It says X was discussed, Y was decided. And we don't have very many meetings. We have one annual meeting, and then the board gets together, I would say, haphazardly. So that is basically what the secretary does. Do we have anybody who would be interested in filling in for Ardith Graham as the secretary? Anyone?
Allie, I might be interested in.
Okay, Claudia.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you, Claudia. And I already have your contact information from Sir. And the last job that we'll be voting on tonight is president. So the president, I am currently the president. I've been the president for the last 3 years. The president shall set the agenda and preside at all meetings of the CIO and the executive board, have the authority to meet on behalf of the CIO and the executive board, serve as contact for all communications from the city regarding CIO matters, perform all duties of supervision and management pertaining to the office of the president, ensure the organization complies with the requirements of the CIO's bylaws, and perform those duties as may be designated by the board. This job is, I have to say, a little bigger than the other two jobs. And one of the reasons is that the CIOs as a whole are going through, I would call it a reformation. We are trying to find out, after 10 years of being involved with the city, what is the role of the CIO in the city? How do we do better what we're trying to do? So currently there's an ad hoc meeting of presidents of the CIOs that meets every between 2 and 4 weeks to get together and just talk about how do we get some traction going with the CIO program. I think that all of that is good. It just means that there are more moving parts with this job. And I would like to know if anybody is interested in becoming the president of the CIO.
Sally, I've got one person in the chat who is also interested in the role of secretary.
Okay, Alexis. Okay. So that means we need to have on.
No, it's totally fine. If she wants it, that's totally fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, thank you though.
Claudia, are you all right with that?
I'm sorry, I was busy putting something in the chat. What was the question?
Claudia, you just almost had some competition for the secretary
Oh,
job.
competition. Look at these muscles here.
But when she found out that you were willing to do it, she says, let her have it, basically.
Okay.
Are you all right with that?
I am fine with that. And Alexis, I might have to tap you if I go on vacation, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, love to have help. Sure. I want to know, Sally, are you running again? Are you able to run again?
I can.
You
Yes.
can? Okay.
I actually really like this job.
You are good at it too.
Thank you. Thank you. But if anybody else would like to step up, our bylaws say that we do have an election process. Anyone? It's 7:57. I can't let this go any longer. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to vote. And I am going to put the three of us together as a slate since we are all unopposed. So it would be Sally Olson for president, Claudia Sterling for secretary, and Jamison Shields for our land use officer. So I need a motion that these officers would be appointed for a 2-year term. I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion that the 3 officers be appointed for a 2-year term.
I'd be happy to second.
Moved and seconded. So now by raising your hand, just raise your hand in the box. Voting yes. Everybody voting yes, raise your hand. Okay, anybody opposed? It looks like we are elected. Congratulations to my fellow officers.
Interesting.
Pardon?
Interesting way to vote.
Well, there are other ways to do it in Zoom that are a little more complicated, but we're trying to keep it simple and we're trying to keep it to an hour. So the last thing that we need to talk about tonight is our bylaws. And as I said at the very beginning of the meeting, if you were on at the 7 o'clock part of the call, we've had draft bylaws for 10 years. CIOs have been around for 10 years and we've had draft bylaws. What we need to do tonight is to vote to, Megan, what's the word? Adopt, thank you. I've lost it. Adopt the bylaws. And they are the bylaws that we have been operating under for 10 years. And we have 2 revisions to them that would be amendments. The first of the amendments is that we would call them the Martinazzi Woods CIO instead of CIO-4. So originally we were numbered CIOs. Now we all have names. And so that is the first amendment, would be to use the Martinazzi Woods name, which we've been doing all along anyway, instead of CIO4. And the second amendment is to change the name from citizen involvement organization to community involvement organization, simply because the community word is more inclusive. You don't necessarily have to be a citizen to be a member of the CIO. You need to be a resident. So where we have citizens in the bylaws, we're going to replace that with residents, because really the true membership status is, do you reside within or own property within the boundaries of Martinazzi Woods CIO? So those are the amendments. The bylaws are, they have several sections. One talks about organization and purpose. One talks about membership. One talks about when we have our meetings. You've already seen the part on the executive board and the officer descriptions in there. And then there are some other miscellaneous provisions in there. The bylaws are available on the website tualatin.org/Martinazzi-Woods-CIO. But if you are willing to take the advice of the executive board of Martinazzi Woods, what I would like to do is have a vote to adopt these bylaws as they stand, and then as they stand as amended, and then we can get them signed so that we have the official bylaws with the city. So would anyone like to make a motion regarding the bylaws? Lisa Willis has moved. Does anyone want to second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Chuck. And now we're going to vote. Everyone in favor of adopting the bylaws as amended, raise your hand. Megan, does it look like just about everybody? Those of you who don't have pictures up aren't getting, oh, I see, you're raising your hands. Oh, I'm so happy, you're Zoom people. Okay, and just for the sake of argument, anyone opposed? No. Okay, so the bylaws, oh, yay. Bylaws are officially adopted now, and that Delmore and I will sign them as the president and the vice president. The last thing I have is just a really brief announcement. I don't know how many of you have done Tualatin Neighborhood Ready. This is something, it's a program through Tualatin CERT. And it is a program where Martinazzi Woods has been broken down into clusters of between 10 and 18 houses, your neighbors. And there are presentations available for emergency preparedness, and the presentations are excellent. I've been to several of them. I just moved 2 months ago. Claudia's nodding her head. Because of COVID, they've moved some of the presentations online. We did an outdoor one in my new neighborhood about a month ago that was well attended. So the next Zoom Tualatin Neighborhood Ready meeting is on January 24th. And information on that is at tualatincert.org/Tualatin-Ready. It's an excellent program. I highly recommend it. And you get to know your neighbors better that way too. So Megan, do we have any other business that has come up in the chat room that I have not monitored? No?
Nope. I've got the questions captured and folks have been sending me their email addresses so we can get the answers to those questions out following the meeting.
That's terrific. I want to thank all of you. For the speakers who are still on the call, I thank you very much for your presentations. Valerie, as always, you're our local our local city council person, so it's always good to hear from you. And I'd like to thank Megan from the city for facilitating all of this. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.